The digital landscape was entirely unprepared for the seismic shift that was about to occur, not even remotely. In the span of a single, unedited podcast taping, a conversation that was supposed to be routine, Joe Rogan uttered a sequence of words that didn't just ripple across the internet. They tore through the fabric of the established narrative like shrapnel, embedding themselves in every political circle, every conspiracy forum, and every investigative thread tied to the untimely death of Charlie Kirk. This was no longer the realm of idle speculation or the whispered rumors of dark corners of the web. This was different. According to Rogan, there is secret footage, raw, unedited, undeniable video evidence that has been quietly circulating among an ultra-exclusive, hermetically sealed group of individuals. The moment those words left his lips, the collective breath of the audience hitched. He didn't broadcast the clip. He didn't offer a frame-by-frame breakdown or claim to own the rights to the file. But he hinted, with a gravity that sobered the room, that someone had sent him a clip. It was a piece of media so disturbing, so entirely unexpected, and so completely contradictory to the official timeline of events that he confessed to watching it multiple times just to process the visual information his brain was refusing to accept. According to his account, this footage doesn't merely raise polite questions or suggest minor inconsistencies. It effectively incinerates the entire framework of the investigation the public was explicitly told to trust. The instant he alluded to the existence of this video, the atmosphere in the studio shifted visibly. His co-host went dead silent. No nervous laughter, no probing follow-up, just a heavy, palpable stillness. But Joe continued, driven by the sheer weight of what he had seen. He described the footage as appearing to show someone Charlie knew intimately, a figure from his inner sanctum, present in a location they had publicly and vehemently denied ever visiting. The timestamp on the file was the smoking gun, placing this individual at the scene mere hours before Charlie was killed. Within minutes of the episode airing, the reaction was nuclear. Clips of Joe's statement were ripped from the stream, reposted, and subjected to forensic levels of analysis. Content creators and digital sleuths swore that if you listen closely, you could hear a deliberate, heavy pause before Joe stopped himself from naming the person he believed he saw. Others pointed out his body language, noting how he leaned away from the microphone and glanced continuously toward the edge of the room, as if someone off-camera were signaling him to tread carefully. Theories didn't just emerge, they exploded into existence. Was it Erica? Was it a member of Charlie's vast political network? A high-level donor? A trusted strategist? A blood relative? Joe withheld the name, but the tremor of genuine fear in his voice spoke volumes. If this footage is authentic, if it truly contains the explosive imagery Joe claims, then everything the world thinks it understands about Charlie Kirk's final night is on the brink of total collapse. Long before Joe Rogan ever breathed a word about secret tapes, long before the internet erupted into a frenzy of digital detective work, there was already a low-frequency hum of unease vibrating beneath the surface of this story. People felt it instinctively, an itch under the skin, a persistent whisper that the mathematics of Charlie's death simply did not add up. Charlie was never just a political figure. He was a gravitational anomaly. He pulled people into his orbit with an irresistible force: advisors, strategists, donors, critics, opportunists, and enemies alike. Sometimes he did this with intent, other times simply by existing, but with a personality that massive and a platform that far-reaching, he inevitably brushed against corners of power that most civilians never glimpse. These are the corners where silence is the only currency that matters and secrets are worn like armor. Yet, despite his immense influence, fractures had begun to form in the bedrock of his circle. Quiet, hairline cracks, long-standing personal disagreements masking themselves as debates over political strategy. Those closest to him whispered that the final year of his life felt wrong. He had become paranoid, perpetually distracted, obsessively careful about who he met and who he avoided. Rumors swirled that Charlie had been proactively gathering intelligence on people he once considered allies, that he was preparing to pull the trigger on a revelation that would do more than just embarrass a few individuals. It would ruin careers, shatter legacies, and dismantle entire networks. And then, abruptly, Charlie was gone. What the public remained oblivious to until Joe Rogan broke the seal was that behind the heavy curtains of this drama, a handful of people believed Charlie had left behind a failsafe. Not a manifesto, not a cache of emails, but video. Footage that captured someone in a place they were forbidden to be, doing something they should not have been doing, associating with a figure they had sworn they did not know. Months prior to the shooting, Charlie's security team had installed a sophisticated, redundant surveillance system linked directly to his personal devices. He had grown increasingly distrustful of the very people he once leaned on for support. Some dismissed it as the spiraling paranoia of a man under pressure. Others argued he was reacting to tangible, credible threats. The truth, as it often does, likely sat somewhere in the murky middle. But the devices were real. They were there, quietly gathering data, tracking movements, and archiving snippets of audio and video across various locations. Some of these feeds Charlie controlled directly, others were automated. According to deep insiders, a glitch in one of these systems, a technological hiccup, captured something the night before Charlie died. It was a glitch that should have been overwritten or deleted by automated protocols. It should have been lost in a corrupted sector of a hard drive. But it wasn't. Someone recovered it. Someone extracted it. And someone, moving with extreme caution, passed it into the world. This is precisely where Joe Rogan enters the narrative architecture. Joe has long held a reputation as the sanctuary for information that mainstream outlets are too terrified to touch. His platform is a behemoth. His audience spans every conceivable demographic and, crucially, he is viewed as uncontrollable by traditional political pressure. When Joe stated that he had been sent footage tied to the Kirk case, the belief was instantaneous. But to truly grasp why this specific footage is so devastating, one must understand the emotional, political, and personal minefield surrounding Charlie in those final weeks. The tension between Charlie and Erica had become the worst-kept secret in their circle. Their arguments were growing louder, their disagreements sharper and more public. Friends tried to wave it off as the normal friction of a high-pressure marriage, but the cracks were running deep. Furthermore, Charlie had begun methodically distancing himself from key players he once worked in lockstep with, people who had benefited immensely from his meteoric rise. The moment he pulled back, a quiet panic set in among them, the kind of panic born from the threat of losing financial streams and political cover. Add to this the fact that Charlie had been in back-channel communication with a journalist, not for a puff piece, but to unload a burden. Then there was Erica, who had reportedly begun taking meetings with individuals Charlie had explicitly forbidden her to trust, people he believed were tied to corruption and darker, non-political operations. Security logs from Charlie's home, previously sealed, indicated an attempt to access his location history from an unknown device the night he died, using credentials tied to Erica. Tech experts dismissed the sync error excuse. And finally, the inconsistencies of his last hours. A meeting he wasn't scheduled for, a call that never connected, a car found where it shouldn't have been. This was the fertile ground upon which Joe Rogan's revelation landed. The list of suspects was already claustrophobically short. Only a few people had the motive, the opportunity, and the intimate knowledge of Charlie's schedule to execute such a betrayal. Joe didn't need to name the person. The hesitation in his voice did the work for him. The internet immediately began dissecting the clip, slowing down Joe's reaction, analyzing the micro-expressions of fear cloaked beneath his curiosity. Was it Erica? Candace? Mickey McCoy? A donor? Or someone entirely unsuspected? If Joe was telling the truth, Charlie's death was not random. It was orchestrated, and it was filmed. The narrative split instantly. On one side, the skeptics who always felt the investigation was sanitized. On the other, the loyalists. But Joe's words detonated the official story. Chaos reigned for 24 hours. Every journalist scrambled for authentication. Then, the first anonymous insider stepped forward with a burner account and a single message. Joe isn't exaggerating. Someone erased the original copy. This suggested not just existence, but a cover-up.